Somalia is a country located on the east coast of Africa, forming the shape of a horn. The country was known as the Land of Gods to the ancient Egyptians, the land of the tallest men to the ancient Persians, the land of cinnamon to the ancient Greeks, the land of aromatics to the ancient Romans, and the land of the unicorn to the ancient Chinese. Frankincense, one of the gifts of the biblical three wise kings, came from ancient Somalia. To this day, the Roman Catholic Church still sources all of its incense exclusively from Somalia, which remains the world's largest producer. Ancient Somalis were the first to domesticate camels in 2500 BC and spread it to ancient Egypt and the Middle East. Somalia today still has more camels than any country on earth. In the valleys of Somalia, 5,000-year-old rock paintings depict one of the oldest horse-riding cultures in the world. Horses were also an important unit in the cavalries of medieval Somali kingdoms. The horsemen in the Kingdom of Adal, for example, wore protective armor for themselves and their horses, while the most famous horse in Somali history belonged to the Dervish king. The oldest surviving sewn ship in the world is the Somali Bedouin ship. It was historically used to ship important quantities of spices across the ancient world. Strabo credits the cinnamon people of ancient Somalia to be the first with the knowledge of the monsoons. The Somali people are one of the oldest Muslim nations in history. A 1,400-year-old mosque in the city of Zayla dates back to the very foundation of Islam, when the early Muslims received refuge from the Aksumite Empire in the Horn of Africa. The medieval Silk Road gold trade between Africa and Asia was founded by Somali merchants from Mogadishu, who established a colony in modern Mozambique and extracted gold from the mines of the Mono Motapa Kingdom of southern Africa. Madagascar was named after Mogadishu. Marco Polo, during his stay in Imperial China, confused the wealthy Sultanate of Mogadishu with the large island in the Indian Ocean. During that same period, the infamous Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan sent a delegation to Mogadishu to establish Mongol trade with medieval Africa. Suspected of being spies scouting out the continent, the Mongols were imprisoned. Kublai Khan then sent another delegation, and they, too, were imprisoned. This swift action by the Somali sultans most likely saved Africa from any further Mongol interest. The Somali Empire of Adal introduced cannon warfare to the African continent in its war against Abyssinia and the Portuguese Empire. Adal was also the first African power to defeat a European power on African soil since the Battle of Cannae between the Carthaginians and the Romans 1,800 years earlier. During the war, Cristavo da Gama, son of Vasco da Gama, was defeated and killed by the king of Adal. The Sultanate of Mogadishu minted its own coins, which have been found as far away as modern Iraq, Turkey, and Dubai. In the 1580s, a Somali fleet from the Ajuran Empire joined a Turkish fleet from the Ottoman Empire and began attacking Portuguese strongholds across southeastern Africa to free the Swahili world from Portuguese domination. In the year 1660, the Portuguese surrendered to a joint Somali-Omani force at Mombasa in modern Kenya. The only hydraulic empire in medieval Africa was the Somali Ajuran Empire. With a network of limestone wells, cisterns, and dikes, it successfully utilized two large East African rivers to project power. In the 13th century, a Somali explorer named Said of Mogadishu traveled to Arabia, India, and China. In the 14th century, a Somali explorer, Abdul Aziz of Mogadishu, became ruler of the Maldives. In the 15th century, a Somali saint founded a town across the Red Sea in modern Yemen, which grew into a formidable seaport. The first Muslim settlement in Sri Lanka was established by a Somali saint. Somali merchants introduced coffee to the world. Grown in modern Ethiopia, Somali merchants exported the now famous stimulant from the Somali port of Berbera to Yemen and the rest of the world in the 15th century. Somali merchants introduced exotic animals to Imperial China. The Somali word for giraffe is still used in China, Korea, and Japan. Two major medieval scholar families from Somalia are credited with important literary works in Islam and produced viziers, scientists, and scholars, serving the Mamluk sultans of Egypt, Damascus, and the Ottoman Empire. In the 18th century, Abdurrahman al-Jabarti recorded the Napoleonic invasion of Egypt. In southern Morocco, Somali merchants established one of the largest and most popular mosques. It's still known as the Somali Mosque. The oldest African community in the United Kingdom was established by Somali sailors. In the 19th century, Somali Sultan Ali Yusuf Kenedid raised an army from Arabia and carved out a kingdom in northeast Somalia. The only Muslim power in Africa during World War I was the Dervish state of Somalia. The Dervishes fought the longest anti-colonial war in African history and built fortresses across East Africa. Hasna, a Somali female commander, led one of the 7 divisions of the Dervish army. The Somali Republic is the only African country whose borders were created by Africans. In 1960, the northern and southern parts of modern Somalia formed a historic union to establish a new country. Women in Somalia voted in elections before women in Switzerland. The first head of state to peacefully relinquish power in Africa was the Somali president Aden Abdulli Osman. In 1962, future Somali President Ali Shamarke went on a state visit to the United States and was welcomed by President John F. Kennedy. Both presidents were assassinated in the 60s, despite their popularity with the masses.